Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling a really famous one, an enduring American mystery, the Lizzie Borden case. The deaths of Andrew and Abby Borden back in 1892.
It's a case that just never seems to fade away, does it? And for this deep dive, we're looking at some material from the Unsolved Mysteries website. It covers the historical side, obviously, but also the strange afterlife of the Borden house itself.
Exactly. Yeah, they cover the gruesome details of what happened. But then there's this whole other angle about the house now being a bed and breakfast, which is, well, something.
Definitely something. And there are claims of paranormal activity there, too, which the site gets into.
Right. So our mission, like always, is to sort of dig through this, pull out the most interesting bits, the most compelling details, and maybe try to figure out why this particular story, this crime, still grabs people over a century later.
Okay, so let's set the scene. August 4th, 1892, Fall River, Massachusetts. Andrew Borden, a wealthy businessman, and his wife Abby found brutally murdered in their home. An axe was the weapon.
Horrific. And suspicion pretty quickly lands on Andrew's daughter, Lizzie. She was, 32 at the time?
That's right, 32. She gets arrested, goes to trial. But, and this is the core of the mystery, I suppose, she's acquitted, found not guilty.
So a shocking double murder. And officially, no killer identified, just hangs there.
Exactly. And now, fast forward to today, in that very house, well, you mentioned it, it's the Lizzie Borden bed and breakfast.
It's just wild, isn't it? You can actually book a room, and they apparently have these informative chats about the murders.
Yeah, over breakfast. And get this, the breakfast includes Johnny cakes and mutton broth.
No way. Is that bad for you?
Apparently, yeah. What the Bordens supposedly ate for their last meal.
Wow. That's a choice. And you can actually sleep in the room where Abby Borden was killed.
You can. The guest room where her body was found.
Yeah.
It's definitely a direct way to engage with the history, I guess you'd say.
Or a really unsettling one. It sort of blurs the line between history and, I don't know, morbid tourism.
It does raise questions, yeah. And the Unsolved Mysteries piece really leans into the idea that maybe the history isn't quite over. The owner, Martha McGinn, and lots of guests, staff too, they report strange things. Paranormal activity?
McGinn herself thinks the spirits might be trying to, communicate, maybe reveal who the real killer was.
That seems to be her feeling, yeah. Trying to get the truth out, perhaps. And she has her own stories, going way back.
Right. The article mentions when she was a teenager living there, she heard things.
Yeah, footsteps upstairs when no one should have been there, the sound of marbles rolling around, kids laughing, classic haunting stuff almost.
It does sound like the standard creepy inventory, but hearing it from someone who lived there long term.
It establishes a pattern, maybe. It wasn't just a one-off thing. And her experiences weren't just sounds. Later on, she describes other things.
Like what?
Well, one time, a window on the second floor apparently flew open and slammed shut violently by itself.
Okay, that's a bit more dramatic than footsteps.
And then there's the basement sighting. She claims she saw a shadowy figure down there. A woman looked like she was wearing Victorian clothes, just sort of floating.
Whoa. In the basement. Basements are always creepy. But a floating Victorian figure. That's next level.
It is. And the Victorian clothing detail, of course, makes you think, is it Abby? Or someone else from that era? Pure speculation, obviously, but it adds to the story.
And it's not just the owner reporting things. You said staff, too.
Right. There was an employee, Carrie Roderick. She talked about finding a bed, one that had just been freshly made, mind you.
Yeah.
With a perfect impression on it. Like someone had been lying there, head on the pillow indent, covers disturbed, but no one had been in the room.
That's oddly specific.
Yeah.
And physical, not just a feeling or a noise, but an actual imprint.
Exactly. That's the kind of thing that sticks with you, I think. Less easy to dismiss as, pipes settling or something.
True. And there was another staff member.
Eleanor Thimbault, the night manager. She had an experience in the parlor. Which is significant because...
That's where Andrew Borden was killed.
Right.
On the sofa.
That's the spot. And she said she saw this, a slow-moving, foggy, smoky thing. An apparition that just sort of drifted and then dissipated near that sofa.
In the exact room where he died.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That definitely adds weight to it location-wise. A smoky apparition. That sounds like something out of a ghost story.
It's a common description in paranormal accounts, that kind of smoky or foggy form, residual energy maybe, or something else. The power of suggestion in such a famous spot. Hard to say.
And then ghost hunters got involved. The article mentions Catherine Ramsland.
Yes, she investigated, and she apparently came to believe Andrew and Abby were trying to communicate, trying to finger the killer.
So she tried to, what, record them?
She took a voice-activated recorder down to the basement again, set it up. The interesting part is it apparently switched on, started recording, but there was total silence. Nothing they could hear anyway.
Huh. So it activated, but why?
Well, the implication, or maybe the hope from the ghost hunting perspective, is that it picked up something beyond human hearing. EVPs, electronic voice phenomena. But
Could have been anything, right? Static, the recorder malfunctioning.
exactly. The article mentions those possibilities, but Ramsland and her team apparently felt uneasy enough to leave the basement pretty quickly after that.
So the Unsolved Mysteries piece presents that as, like, potential evidence that the Bordens are trying to talk.
It leans that way, calling it potential solid evidence. But it does acknowledge the other explanations. It really just throws more fuel on the fire, adds another layer to the what if.
It definitely does. Which brings us to the comments section on that article. Always a wild ride, the comments section.
Oh, absolutely. And this one doesn't disappoint. You get a real mix of theories, corrections, speculations, the works.
Like someone brings up Lizzie supposedly planning to get stuff to make brass knuckles.
Yeah, telling the maid, Bridget Sullivan, which, if true, suggests, well, planning. Maybe thinking about weapons beyond just an axe.
Interesting. And that same commenter mentioned seeing a mature lady image in crime scene photos.
Yeah.
And linked it to a movie theory about LGBT activity being discovered by the stepmother.
Right. It shows how later interpretations, even fictional ones, can get woven into the narrative people build around the case. It's like the story keeps evolving.
Someone else made a really practical point. No electricity back then.
Crucial point. Imagine how dark that house would have been, especially on like a cloudy day or near dawn or dusk. It changes how you picture everything.
Totally. And then, of course, you get the jokers.
Yeah.
Someone claiming they were the killer.
Always one of those. But yeah, the lack of electricity is a genuinely important factor to remember. Dim lighting, shadows. It all adds to the potential confusion and maybe the fear.
Then there's talk about psychics. Someone mentioned one hearing Lizzie's uncle yelling at Andrew just before it happened.
Yeah, Uncle John Morse. He was visiting, stayed the night before, and his movements that morning were, well, questioned. The idea of him arguing with Andrew introduces another potential conflict, another possible source of tension right before the murders.
So maybe it wasn't just Lizzie who had issues with Andrew.
Potentially. It broadens the scope a bit, which ties into other comments disagreeing about whether Lizzie even acted alone.
Right. People wonder about the maid, Bridget, or the sister Emma. Was it a conspiracy?
That debate comes up a lot. Could one woman, especially a supposedly genteel woman of that era, overpower and kill two people so violently, alone, without making a huge mess or noise? Some people doubt it.
And speaking of doubt, someone had to correct another commenter who thought Lizzie was Andrew's sister.
Yeah, daughter. It just shows how even basic facts can get twisted over time with such a famous, almost legendary case.
Facts like the number of axe blows, too. People corrected the famous rhyme.
Oh, yeah, but Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks, wasn't 40, or 41 for Andrew.
Much less, right?
Yeah.
Still horrible, but...
Still horrific, yes. Abby apparently had 19 wounds, Andrew 10 or 11. Grim details, but their reality is different from the rhyme that everyone knows. The rhyme is catchy, the reality is just brutal.
And the motives people suggest go beyond just money, right?
Yeah.
The comments mention Andrew being controlling.
Yeah.
Stingy.
Yeah, that comes up. Refusing to install running water, electricity. Painting him as this sort of tight-fisted, old-fashioned patriarch, maybe creating a really oppressive atmosphere in the house.
Which could build resentment. And then there are the really dark allegations about sexual abuse.
That theory is definitely out there, yes. That Andrew might have been abusing Lizzie and possibly Emma. It provides a much darker, more complex potential motive, but
another commenter pushes back hard on that, says there's no valid evidence.
Correct. It's a very serious allegation, and according to that commenter, and frankly the historical record is murky on this, there's no concrete proof. It remains a deeply contested and sensitive area of speculation. We have to be clear about that. It's a theory some people discuss, but not established fact based on the sources here.
Understood. And Emma, the sister. People wonder if she knew something or was even involved somehow.
Her absence on the day of the murder, she was out of town visiting friends, has always made people wonder. Did she know something was going to happen? Did Lizzie confide in her? Or was she completely uninvolved? More questions with no firm answers.
And there's that other theory, kind of chilling, that Lizzie might have committed the murders naked to avoid getting blood on her clothes.
That one pops up quite a bit. It addresses the problem of how the killer avoided being completely splattered with blood. If true, it would suggest incredible, almost cold-blooded premeditation, a really stark image.
Definitely. Someone mentioned finding the stepmother's clothes in a chimney, but that wasn't in the main article.
Right. That commenter said they read it in a book. It's a good example of how many different stories and alleged facts circulate around this case. You have the core events, then layers and layers of interpretations, secondary accounts, maybe even fiction blurring together over time. Always important to check the source.
Good point. Something else mentioned was the mindset back then. People just couldn't believe a woman, especially a woman of Lizzie's standing, could do something so violent.
A huge factor. Victorian sensibilities, gender roles. The idea of a Sunday school teacher hacking her parents to death was almost unthinkable for many people on that jury, likely. It probably played a big part in her acquittal. How could she do that?
And the lack of noise. People bring that up too. How could these incredibly violent attacks happen without anyone hearing screams or a struggle?
Yeah, Bridget Sullivan, the maid, was resting in her attic room. Neighbors were nearby. The quietness is odd. Does it suggest the victims were taken totally by surprise, maybe incapacitated first? Or, as some commenters think, does it point to a conspiracy? Maybe someone wasn't telling the whole truth about what they heard or didn't hear.
Makes you think. And then there's the modern angle. Could forensics today solve it? Fingerprints on the axe handle, maybe?
Ugh. The dream of cold case tech. It's tempting to think, right? Grab that hatchet found in the basement, run some tests, but realistically, after over a century, with all the handling that evidence has surely undergone.
Yeah, probably contaminated beyond hope, huh?
Most likely. Fingerprints would be long gone, DNA degraded or mixed from countless sources. It's a nice thought, but probably not feasible. The mystery likely stays historical.
Okay, and we also had commenters claiming to be psychics, agreeing the victims are trying to communicate.
Yep, a couple of those chimed in, sort of backing up the owner's feeling and the ghost hunters, saying yes, Andrew and Abby are restless, trying to get the message out.
And someone dreamt Andrew's laugh. That's
Really?
specific.
It just shows how deeply this case gets under people's skin, sometimes literally into their dreams. It takes on this almost mythical quality.
So summing up the comments, lots of people are convinced Lizzie did it. They point to motive resentment, maybe money opportunity, and what they see as her cunning nature, the perfect setup.
Definitely a strong contingent for guilt. But then others offer alternatives. Maybe Lizzie just found them. Maybe someone else entirely did it. Maybe the main motive wasn't just money, but deep hatred for Abby, for the marriage itself.
The debate just keeps going. Guilty, innocent, alone, conspiracy?
It never seems to resolve. And there was that one final comment, sort of poignant, about ghosts maybe moving on if they find salvation.
Right. It adds a different kind of layer to the whole haunting discussion, doesn't it? Maybe there's an end goal for these alleged spirits.
Spiritual perspective, yeah. Maybe resolution isn't just about solving the crime for us, but about peace for them, if you believe in that sort of thing.
So wrapping this up, it's clear the Lizzie Borden case is it's a maze. You've got the horrific, unsolved crime at the center. Then you have the house itself, the place you can actually visit, sleep in, eat the last meal.
Which is inherently unsettling and fascinating. And then layered on top of that are all these accounts of paranormal activity, the idea that maybe Andrew and Abby are still there trying to communicate.
The big questions just hang there, don't they? Was Lizzie the killer? Seems plausible in some ways, impossible in others. If not her, who? Who else had the motive, the opportunity, the sheer brutality?
And what do we make of the ghost stories? Are they real attempts to reveal the truth? Or just stories, products of history, suggestion, maybe explainable phenomena?
The B&B itself is such a strange focal point now. A direct, maybe kind of ghoulish link to the tragedy. And maybe, just maybe, a place where the past is literally still present.
It really underscores how much power these unsolved mysteries hold, how they resist easy answers and keep us guessing. The lack of concrete proof just leaves so much room for imagination, for reinterpretation by every new generation.
So for everyone listening, what part of this grabs you? Is it the historical puzzle, the psychological aspect of Lizzie, the ghost stories? And why do you think we're still talking about this, still fascinated by it well over 100 years later?
That's the enduring power of the Borden mystery, something to definitely keep thinking about.